we see people rushing, phones pressed to ears, coffees in hand, hearts beating to invisible clocks set by ambition. What if, for one day, you slowed that clock by half? How would your world sound, look, or feel different? This is the question Aristotle might have asked if he were alive today, watching us chase extremes in every direction. He believed virtue didn't live at the edges of life, but in its center, the golden mean, the art of balanced being. Courage isn't recklessness, he said, but the midpoint between fear and foolhardy confidence, a rhythm, not a reaction. Temperance isn't denial, but harmony between desire and discipline, a dance where neither partner leads too long. But how do you find balance in a world that profits from imbalance, that rewards louder, faster, stronger over wiser? Aristotle lived in an age of chaos, wars, politics, wealth, philosophy colliding like storms over Athens' marble hills. He watched people torn between indulgence and restraint, passion and apathy, and wondered if peace could live in motion. So he studied life not as a list of rules, but as a living equation, human emotion multiplied by choice and time. His conclusion was radical. Virtue wasn't given by gods or governments. It was built by habit, decision by decision. You could practice balance the way you practice music or sport, through repetition until the tune feels like home. Every moment of moderation was a note in the symphony of character. Miss enough notes and your harmony collapses. And yet, the mean was never a bland middle. It was active, dynamic, as precise as a dancer between two cliffs. Too much fear, and you freeze. Too much boldness, and you break. The mean is the narrow bridge where growth happens. He called it Aristotle, excellence of the soul, where balance isn't safety, but mastery, living artfully amid chaos. Today, we confuse balance with stagnation, imagining peace as stillness instead of motion aligned with purpose. But Aristotle's balance breathes. It flexes, adapts, listens, and returns to center like a tree bending with the wind. The golden mean isn't about mediocrity. It's about motion that never strays so far it can't return to integrity. In every choice, how we speak, spend, love, or argue, there's a point between excess and absence that defines us. Maybe true balance isn't found by stopping the storm, but by learning how to walk steadily through its center. And maybe that's what our frantic modern life has forgotten. Balance isn't boring. It's the bravest form of freedom. Because to live moderately in a culture of extremes isn't weakness, it's rebellion, the quiet power of enough. The golden mean isn't a theory buried in dusty Greek scrolls. It's a living compass waiting beneath your habits. Every morning offers another chance to recalibrate, to choose courage over rage, patience over apathy, grace over pride. That's the hidden beauty of Aristotle's philosophy. It doesn't demand perfection, only persistence toward the center. And that center, when practiced long enough, becomes character, the unseen architecture holding your world together. So when everything around you screams for more, louder, faster, remember this: balance isn't a pause, it's precision. The mean is not the middle of mediocrity, but the equilibrium of excellence. The still point in the turning world. And that still point, Aristotle believed, is where humanity becomes whole again, one deliberate act at a time. Imagine walking into a boardroom where ambition fills the air like static, every voice sharpened by urgency and fear. Someone pitches a bold idea that could either revolutionize the company or crash it completely before next quarter. Half the room wants to sprint. The other half wants to stall, and in the middle sits the quiet tension of uncertainty. This is where Aristotle's golden mean reappears, centuries later, disguised as strategic judgment instead of virtue. He would say the right choice rarely lives at the loudest extremes, but in the thoughtful pause between impulse and doubt. The executive who balances courage with caution practices philosophy without realizing it, a modern form of virtue. For Aristotle, balance wasn't about avoiding risk, but mastering proportion, knowing when to push and when to pause. That same logic applies to creativity, where too much structure suffocates imagination, yet chaos alone births confusion. The artist must dance with limitation, using discipline not to cage freedom, but to shape it into something enduring. In a digital world of constant content and collapsing attention, that dance is harder, yet more necessary than ever. Social media thrives on excess, more clicks, more outrage, more comparison, each algorithm dragging us from our center. The mean becomes invisible when our sense of self is outsourced to metrics, applause, and trending validation loops. But Aristotle would remind us that virtue lives in self-governance, not public opinion, the courage to choose quietly. Balance online isn't about deleting your profile. It's about designing digital habits that honor your inner rhythm. Maybe that means posting less, but with intention, or scrolling slower, aware of when curiosity turns into compulsion. Moderation is not retreat, it's reclamation. The act of setting the tempo before the world sets it for you. You might call it temperance of the modern mind, the ability to enjoy technology without surrendering to its appetite. Even in ambition, the mean offers guidance between contentment that dulls growth and greed that devours purpose. True ambition, Aristotle would say, isn't the pursuit of everything, but the refinement of what truly matters most. It's a sculptor's ambition, removing the unnecessary to reveal the essential, the character beneath the clutter. The same balance defines leadership, parenting, artistry, and love. A steady pulse between giving and guarding energy. Every imbalance begins with good intent taken too far. Passion becomes obsession. Discipline becomes rigidity. The mean whispers where the extremes shout, asking not, "How much can I get?" but "How much is enough to stay whole?" In relationships, balance becomes empathy in motion. The courage to listen without losing your own voice. Too much control breeds resentment. Too little presence breeds drift. The mean breathes in the rhythm between the two. Love itself, Aristotle hinted, is a kind of balance between need and generosity, autonomy and devotion. In our age of self-optimization, we chase constant improvement, but forget that growth without rest becomes erosion. The golden mean offers a counterpoint. Grow deeply, not endlessly. Expand without losing shape. Evolve without burnout. Modern success stories rarely praise balance. Yet the strongest lives are built quietly upon it, unseen but unshakable. Aristotle's wisdom wasn't designed for monasteries, but marketplaces, battlefields, and dinner tables alike. He studied ethics not to judge perfection, but to guide practice, to build a philosophy people could live, not worship. That's what makes it timeless. It bends with context but never breaks its core principle, balance as strength. And so, when you face your next decision, large or small, listen for the space between desire and fear. That's the mean. It won't shout. It hums like a compass, pointing not to comfort but to clarity, where action meets alignment. That moment of balance is where integrity begins, and every day offers another chance to find it again. Now imagine balance not as a skill, but as a sanctuary, a space you carry inside no matter how loud the world becomes. Aristotle never promised serenity without struggle. He knew that virtue was born from friction, not from escape. Balance demands awareness, and awareness begins in discomfort, the gentle alarm that tells you you've drifted too far. In our culture of constant motion, stillness feels suspicious, yet it's in that stillness the mean quietly recalibrates. Think of anger, for example. Too little, and you tolerate injustice. Too much, and you become what you hate. Aristotle taught that righteous anger, guided by reason, is not a flaw but a force, the balance between apathy and rage. Imagine what that means for society today, when every cause burns like wildfire and every argument seeks total victory. We've forgotten the art of the measured flame, the power of conviction tempered by empathy, principle shaped by grace. A golden mean doesn't ask you to dim your light. It asks you to aim it so it illuminates, not blinds the room. That's why moderation is often misunderstood. It's not neutral, it's navigational, the steering wheel of moral life. In politics, in activism, in love, the mean resists the gravity of polarization and returns us to shared humanity. It's what allows conversation to replace conflict, compromise to outlast chaos, and wisdom to outshine ideology. Aristotle believed that the balanced soul builds a balanced society. The ethics scale outward like ripples in a pond. Every act of moderation refines the collective rhythm, proving that peace begins in the habits of individual hearts. In the realm of emotion, balance becomes resilience. The capacity to feel deeply without drowning in feeling. Too much detachment numbs, too much sensitivity consumes. The mean teaches us to stay open yet anchored. In grief, it means allowing sorrow without self-erasure. In joy, it means celebrating without needing to possess. Emotional balance isn't indifference. It's intimacy without dependence, compassion without collapse. And perhaps nowhere is this harder than in modern love, where vulnerability feels risky and independence feels safer. Aristotle would argue that love requires balance, not between two people, but within each person who chooses to love. Only when your inner scale steadies can you offer love freely, not as transaction, but as expression of wholeness. You might smile at our dating apps and algorithms, not in judgment, but in curiosity. How do we seek balance digitally? We crave connection but curate perfection. We offer fragments and wonder why intimacy feels incomplete. The mean in love might be authenticity. Not oversharing, not concealing, but revealing enough to be seen and known. And when life fractures, as it inevitably does, balance is what keeps you from mistaking pain for identity. To live the golden mean is to live with proportion, remembering that neither despair nor ecstasy lasts forever. Each emotion, like each season, has its rightful measure, its own tempo in the music of a well-lived life. Aristotle didn't ask us to mute the highs or lows, only to play them in harmony, to stay faithful to the melody of being. Because when balance becomes habit, chaos becomes choreography, and even suffering can find a kind of rhythm. That rhythm doesn't erase hardship, it transforms it into wisdom, the golden mean as alchemy of the human heart. So when you feel pulled apart by the world's noise, remember that balance isn't the absence of motion, but mastery of it. To stand in the middle is not to stand still, it's to stand aware, grounded between what was and what might yet be. In that awareness, life regains its depth, decisions regain their dignity, and the self returns to its natural alignment. Picture the final scene, the sun lowering over the same city street where our story began, the rhythm slowing once more. A stranger smiles at a passing child. A barista wipes the counter. A cyclist coasts through golden light and shadow. Nothing monumental has changed, yet everything feels different because balance has quietly redrawn the outlines of living. Aristotle would say that wisdom doesn't shout from podiums. It hums in the cadence of ordinary choices, repeated well. Virtue, after all, is not a single heroic act, but a pattern of measured moments stitched through the fabric of a day. The golden mean is not something you find once, it's something you practice forever, like tuning an instrument by ear. Every mistake becomes feedback, every success a reminder that excellence lies between arrogance and doubt. And this pursuit, this lifelong recalibration, is where philosophy becomes movement and thought turns into craft. To live the mean is to live attentively, refusing the seduction of extremes that promise clarity but deliver chaos. The world will always reward spectacle, but the soul thrives in proportion, in the quiet balance of thought and action. Imagine if institutions, nations, even algorithms were designed with this principle. How different would progress feel? Growth measured not by expansion but by equilibrium, innovation guided by ethics, power tempered by humility. Perhaps that's Aristotle's most radical legacy. That balance is not just personal virtue but civil architecture. A balanced citizen builds a balanced city, where justice and compassion share the same table without shouting. And in that balance, humanity remembers its center, the pulse that unites reason and emotion, mind and heart. Aristotle wrote of the flourishing life, eudaimonia, where meaning grows not from excess but from alignment with purpose. It's not the pursuit of pleasure, nor the denial of it, but the crafting of a life that fits the contours of your own soul. To live well, he said, is to live beautifully within limits, to make those limits sing with harmony rather than resistance. That's why the golden mean endures. It adapts to each age, yet loses none of its precision, none of its human truth. In an era drowning in noise, balance becomes a radical act of listening, of restoring proportion to the possible. The future doesn't belong to the loudest or the fastest, but to those who can stay centered long enough to build wisely. Maybe balance is not what keeps us safe, but what keeps us human. The compass that steadies our evolution. And so, when tomorrow's rush begins again, remember the philosopher walking quietly through ancient Athens. He would look at your crowded calendar, your glowing screens, your restless striving, and simply ask, "Where is your mean?" Not to shame you, but to remind you that virtue lives where attention meets intention, where rhythm becomes grace. The golden mean is the courage to live deliberately, to keep recalibrating even when the world spins off its axis. Because balance, in the end, is not the absence of motion, it's mastery of it, the art of standing steady while everything moves. So breathe, recalibrate, and begin again. The mean awaits, not as a destination, but as a way of moving through the world.